As you grow older, be mindful of who you let close. We're taught to be kind, to give, to listen, to be there for others. But as we age, we begin to understand something deeper. Not everyone deserves full access to our time, energy, or peace. Kindness is still important, but it doesn't mean keeping everyone close. Some people, often family, neighbors, or old friends, drain us more than we realize. They rely on our silence, our patience, and our willingness to carry more than we should. That's why, in your later years, it's wise even, to limit contact with certain people. Not to be unkind, but to protect your well-being. Your peace is precious. It's not about cutting others off, but about choosing healthier boundaries. In this video, we'll look at 6 types of relationships that may need space, not out of anger but out of love for yourself. Because these years are no longer for fixing others. They're for protecting your joy, your strength, and what truly matters. Let's begin. Number 1. The chronic complainer and the quiet cost of carrying their storm. As we grow older, our emotional landscape shifts. What once felt manageable in our youth, listening endlessly, absorbing others' emotions, offering comfort without pause, begins to weigh more heavily on our hearts. And one of the most subtle yet persistent drains on our well-being often comes from someone we don't immediately see as harmful, the chronic complainer. This is the person whose conversations are almost always rooted in what's going wrong. The weather is terrible. Their health is failing. Their family doesn't treat them right. The government is a mess. Their neighbors are annoying. And the list goes on, day after day, week after week. At first, your instinct is compassion. You listen. You offer words of comfort. You try to shift the mood with something positive. And sometimes it feels like it helps. But often it doesn't. The pattern continues, and gradually you begin to notice something deeper. After every interaction, you feel a little more tired, a little more burdened, a little less light. You see, chronic complaining isn't just about words, it's about energy. It creates an atmosphere of heaviness. And when it becomes a recurring presence in your life, it can slowly chip away at your own sense of hope and contentment. You start to brace yourself before a phone call. You feel drained afterward. You begin to carry their storm as if it were your own. And yet the guilt sets in. But they're lonely. They've had a hard life. They just need someone to talk to. All of these things may be true. But so is this. You are not responsible for holding someone else's sadness indefinitely. Especially when that sadness becomes a habit, not a healing. There is a difference between someone going through a hard time and someone who chooses to live there. Chronic complainers often don't want solutions. What they seek is a listener, a witness, an audience. And while empathy is noble, being pulled into another's endless narrative of dissatisfaction can be emotionally exhausting. This doesn't mean cutting them out entirely. It means creating boundaries with grace. Perhaps you speak less often, or shorten the length of your conversations, or gently steer topics toward more uplifting ground. You can still care, still offer kindness, but without sacrificing your peace in the process. And perhaps most importantly, give yourself permission to protect your joy. You've lived long enough to know how fleeting peace can be, how precious a quiet morning is, how valuable it is to be surrounded by light instead of shadows. In this chapter of your life, you get to choose who shares your emotional space. Limiting your time with chronic complainers isn't unkind. It's a tender act of self-respect, because your days are worth more than enduring endless negativity. They are for laughter, reflection, gentle connections, and for those rare, beautiful moments when nothing is wrong at all. Number 2. The guilt tripper, when love feels like obligation. There is a kind of emotional weight that doesn't come from shouting or harsh words, but from sighs, silence, and subtle remarks. It comes from people who don't raise their voices but instead lower your spirit. They don't demand outright, but somehow you always feel like you owe them something. These are the guilt trippers. They can be family, an old friend, a grown child, someone who knows exactly which words will reach your soft spots, the places where your love, your loyalty, your sense of responsibility live. They say things like, "I guess I'm just not that important anymore. You used to be there for me. I don't know what changed. I'm not asking for much, just a little of your time like before." And suddenly, without realizing it, you feel defensive. You feel small. You feel like you've failed someone you care about. That's the power of guilt. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And those whispers grow louder the older we get, especially when the guilt comes from those we love most. But here's something many of us don't hear enough. Love that is tied to guilt is not healthy love. It is not your job to fill every emotional need in someone else's life. It is not your responsibility to be their constant source of comfort, especially when that comfort is rooted in sacrifice. Guilt trippers often don't intend to harm. Sometimes they're simply afraid of being left behind, afraid of becoming irrelevant. But fear doesn't give someone the right to manipulate. And fear certainly doesn't mean you have to stay in a relationship that makes you feel burdened, obligated, or emotionally cornered. The truth is, guilt-based relationships are rarely balanced. They take but don't return. They expect but don't ask. They draw you in not because they want to connect, but because they don't want to be alone with themselves. You can still love these people. You can still care. But you do not have to let them define the terms of your kindness. You do not have to explain every boundary. And you are allowed to say, "I need space," or "that doesn't feel fair," or even "no" without guilt, without apology. Your later years are a time to return to yourself. To give freely but not out of pressure. To be generous but not resentful. And to recognize that a peaceful life sometimes requires disappointing those who rely on your guilt more than your grace. Limit the contact, not the compassion. You can still be kind from a distance. You can still check in without checking your emotional well-being at the door. Because you matter too. And the more you honor that truth, the more room you make for relationships built not on guilt, but on mutual respect, genuine care, and emotional freedom. If this insight resonates with you, please write number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still here. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe and click the bell icon, so you don't miss the next chapters in this journey. Let's keep going. Number 3. The drama magnet. When every conversation feels like a crisis. Some people walk into a room and bring with them a storm. Not because they mean to cause harm, but because they are caught in a constant state of unrest. Their stories are always intense. Their emotions urgent. Their lives seem to move from one crisis to the next, rarely a moment of calm. These are the drama magnets. And if you've ever spent time with one, you know the feeling well. Conversations that begin with, "You won't believe what happened," and end with you emotionally exhausted, sometimes even anxious yourself. At first, you may feel drawn to them. There's something compelling about their stories, their energy, the sense that they need you. And you, being kind and loyal, feel it's your role to listen, to soothe, to offer advice. Maybe you've been doing that for years. But over time, the pattern reveals itself. No matter how much support you give, the chaos continues. You start to notice that every phone call leaves you feeling drained. That even happy occasions turn into complaint sessions. That peace, yours and theirs, is always just out of reach. Here's the quiet truth many discover later in life. Some people are more attached to the drama than to the resolution. They don't want things to get better. Because in the drama they feel significant. They feel alive. And often they feel in control. Meanwhile, you're left carrying the emotional weight of stories that aren't yours. You find yourself worrying about problems you didn't create, trying to fix situations you can't change, and sacrificing your own calm just to keep up with someone else's whirlwind. But you are not their rescue team. You are not their counselor, their referee, or their constant sounding board. You are allowed to want conversations that lift you up, not drag you under. This doesn't mean abandoning people in pain. It means recognizing when someone is choosing to live in chaos, and refusing to let it define your emotional climate. You can listen with care, but you don't have to get pulled into every storm. You can offer encouragement, but it's okay to say, "I'm not in a space to talk about that right now." As you grow older, serenity becomes more than a luxury, it becomes a need. Your nervous system deserves rest. Your heart deserves ease. And your mind deserves quiet moments free from someone else's drama reel. Limiting contact with drama magnets isn't selfish, it's sacred. Because your later years are not meant to be lived on high alert. They are meant for warm mornings, slow afternoons, and people who bring peace, not problems. Let others chase the storm if they must. But you can choose the quiet. Number 4. The one-way relator. when connection feels like obligation. There's a kind of relationship that looks on the surface like friendship, like care, like loyalty. But when you pause to look closer, you begin to notice it's not truly a shared experience. It's something you carry, something you give, and very little comes back in return. This is the world of the one-way relator, the person who calls when they need something, who shows up when they want help, who leans on you in their hour of need, but disappears when the roles are reversed. At first, you may not even notice. You're generous by nature, thoughtful, dependable. You enjoy being there for others. It gives your life meaning. You answer the phone when they call. You listen when they vent. You offer support, rides, favors, reassurance. And you do it without expecting much. But over time, something changes. You realize that when you need support, when you're tired, sick, overwhelmed, this person is nowhere to be found. Your messages go unanswered. Your needs, gently voiced, are brushed aside. It's as if your role is to give, and theirs is simply to take. And this imbalance, if left unchecked, becomes quietly painful. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a dull ache in your heart, a sense that you're always showing up but rarely met in return. As we grow older, our time and energy become sacred. We have less tolerance for relationships that feel transactional, where love is conditional and presence is one-sided. We start to recognize that connection means mutual care, not convenience. You deserve relationships that feel like a dance, not a duty, where your voice is heard, your needs matter, your silence is noticed. Real friendship is not built on how much you do for someone, it's built on how you make each other feel. Say, valued. It's not unkind to notice this imbalance. It's not wrong to name it. And it's certainly not selfish to pull back. You are allowed to choose relationships that fill your cup, not just drink from it. This doesn't mean cutting people off in anger. It simply means rethinking the dynamic. Perhaps you stop initiating. Perhaps you respond less quickly. Perhaps you let the silence be a teacher. Because sometimes when you stop reaching out, you discover just how little was ever reaching back. And that truth, while sobering, is also freeing. In your later years, companionship should be a source of joy, not a weight to carry. The people in your life should notice when you're quiet. They should call to check in, not just to check off a favor. They should love you for who you are, not what you provide. You are not a service. You are not an obligation. You are a person, with depth, value, and a heart that still deserves to receive. If this insight resonates with you, please write number 4 in the comments to let me know you're still here. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe and click the bell icon, so you don't miss the next chapters in this journey. Let's keep going. Number 5. The subtle critic. When words wound without raising a voice. Not all wounds are loud. Not all hurt comes from anger or shouting or clear rejection. Sometimes, it comes in soft tones, in offhand remarks, in the kind of comments that feel small, until they pile up and press against your self-worth. This is the subtle critic. They don't insult you directly. They don't lash out or speak harshly. No, their tools are much quieter. Sarcasm, backhanded compliments, raised eyebrows, and questions that sound innocent but sting deeply. They say things like, "You still wear that color? I guess it's your style. You're really still doing that at your age? I would never do that, but hey, that's your choice." On the surface, these words seem light, playful even, but beneath them is a pattern: doubt, comparison, minimization. And over time, these small cuts begin to shape how you feel about yourself. You second-guess your choices. You brace yourself before sharing joy. You shrink ever so slightly in their presence. Many people tolerate this kind of criticism for years. Sometimes it comes from a sibling, a longtime friend, even a spouse. And because the words aren't overtly cruel, we convince ourselves we're being too sensitive. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. That's just how they are. But kindness does not require you to ignore discomfort. And age does not make criticism easier to bear, it simply makes it more tiresome. You have walked through decades of life. You have grown, fallen, risen, learned. You have the right to be spoken to with gentleness, to be supported without sarcasm, and to be celebrated without conditions. No one has the right to chip away at your confidence, no matter how subtle their tone. The most painful part of dealing with a subtle critic is often the guilt. You think, they're just being honest, or they love me in their own way. But love that regularly undercuts your spirit isn't love, it's control, or insecurity, or a habit they've never been asked to look at. You don't have to confront them with anger. You don't even need to explain yourself. What you can do is step back. Speak less. Share less. Choose silence when criticism comes. Or simply say, "That didn't feel kind." Sometimes that one sentence changes everything. Other times it simply makes your boundary clear. Your later years are not for tolerating people who make you feel small. They are for embracing those who remind you of your worth, who honor the journey you've taken, who speak with warmth and listen with care. Your confidence is not up for debate. Your choices don't need approval. And your peace is far more valuable than someone's opinion disguised as a joke. You are not too sensitive. You are simply no longer willing to be hurt quietly. Number 6. The past holder, when you're not allowed to outgrow who you were. There's something beautiful about long relationships, the ones that stretch over years, even decades. They carry memories, stories, and the comfort of familiarity. But sometimes, within that familiarity hides a quiet burden. Being seen not for who you are now, but for who you used to be. This is the past holder. They remember the version of you from long ago, and they never quite let you forget it. Maybe you were once shy, unsure, dependent, or reckless. Maybe you made mistakes or had habits you've since outgrown. Or maybe you were simply different, more eager to please, less likely to speak up. But now you've grown. You've softened in some places, strengthened in others. You've learned, healed, and changed. And still, the past holder keeps bringing up the old chapters. That's just you, always so emotional. Remember when you used to mess everything up? You? Give advice now. These words aren't always said with malice. Sometimes they come with a laugh, a teasing tone, or a "just kidding." But you feel it. That subtle dismissal of the you that exists now, the wise, grounded, present version of yourself. It's as if your past is being held up like a mirror, preventing anyone, including you, from seeing how far you've come. This dynamic can feel especially frustrating in later life. After all, you've spent years growing into your truth. You've worked hard to develop resilience, wisdom, and calm. To be spoken to, or looked at, through the lens of who you were 20 or 40 years ago feels unfair. Worse, it feels invalidating. And yet, many people accept this treatment because it's familiar. They've known me forever. That's just how they are. I guess I haven't really changed in their eyes. But you deserve more than familiarity. You deserve recognition. You deserve to be met with fresh eyes and an open heart, even by those who've known you longest. Sometimes the past holder refuses to grow their view of you because it helps them feel more in control, more superior, or more right about who they believe you are. But their refusal is not your responsibility. You don't need to prove that you've changed. You only need to live in your truth. That might mean pulling back, speaking up, or simply smiling gently and not engaging when they bring up an outdated version of you. Let them sit with their memory, while you continue forward in your reality. You are not who you were. You are more. You are layered with lessons, softened by time, and filled with a quiet kind of strength that can only come from a life truly lived. Let the past be the past. And surround yourself with people who see your present, with clarity, with curiosity, and with deep, honoring respect. Final thoughts. As we journey through life, especially in our later years, we come to understand something deeply important. Protecting our peace is not selfish, it's sacred. You've spent decades growing, giving, and holding space for others. Now it's time to hold space for yourself. To be intentional with your energy. To choose who gets close to your heart. And to release the weight of relationships that no longer honor who you are today. Limiting contact with certain types of people doesn't mean you've stopped loving them. It means you've started loving yourself, with clarity, with grace, and without guilt. So give yourself permission to breathe, to rest, to surround yourself with those who bring you warmth, respect, and genuine companionship. You've earned that. You deserve nothing less. If this message spoke to your heart, I invite you to take a moment and reflect. Who in your life truly nourishes your spirit? And who might you need to love from a gentle distance? If you found comfort or insight in this video, please give it a like so others can find it too. And if you'd like to walk this journey with me, toward more peace, more self-awareness, and more joy, click subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This channel is a soft corner of the internet, made for people like you. In the comments below, share with me, what's one boundary you've learned to set as you've gotten older? I read every message and I'd love to hear your wisdom. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of your peace, and remember, you are allowed to choose yourself.